Hi guys, today we're going to be talking about the wife of Bath according to the Edexcel A-Level English Literature spec for paper 3. So, points for this video, I'm going to be going through some key contextual knowledge that will really help you with your exam, and then some just general exam advice for the English Literature exam, paper 3. Okay, so starting with some key contextual knowledge. We've got anti-feminism, gentlesse, estate satire, and anti-clericalism. Anti-feminism is a core part of all things wife of Bath because the wife herself is presented as an anti-feminist stereotype as a wife. So here are some key texts just shown on the screen that you can use to develop your knowledge for contemporary anti-feminism around the time that, the Canterbury Tales were written. So you've got some of Chaucer's own works there with his translation of the Romance of the Rose, which is about La Vielle, an old prostitute. And then you've got Chaucer's Legend of Good Women. Then you've got Theophrastus, who's actually referenced in the appendix of, or at least my copy of the Wife of Bath, and the one that is used generally for the specification. So, and then St. Jerome is just someone who references Theophrastus very heavily. But the Golden Book of Marriage is very key for your English literature studies because it can show you contemporary anti-feminist ideas versus women. Gentlesse is really important as the Canterbury Tales generally, and specifically the Wife of Bath's prologue and tale, they explore the idea of whether gentlesse is one of its two meanings. So gentlesse can mean being of noble birth, or gentlesse can mean having these noble qualities. This is shown particularly within the Wife of Bath's tale with the knight, who, despite being of nobility, does he present the ideas that are shown on the screen right now. These are just a few examples of gentlesse, it's not all of them, but these are really good for analysing the Wife of Bath and the Wife of Bath's tale. So you've got truther, keeping one's word, freedom of franchise, generosity of spirit. The franchise one is more to do with monetary stuff, so like finance and stuff like that. Courtesy, polite manners and behaviour. And clennesse, sexual restraint, restraining sexual desire. For example, you could use the example of clennesse when talking about the knight in the Wife of Bath's tale, as he does not exemplify sexual restraint in his raping of the maiden. So estate satire is really, really important to the Wife of Bath and the Wife of Bath's tale, as you can see on the screen, written towards the end of the 14th century, as it criticises, even to the point of parody, the main social classes of the time. So underneath that, I've just got another definition. It's obviously the feudal system was prevalent, and this kind of highlights each tier of the feudal system and criticises them differently within like humour and like going against their shortcomings. But when you're using the example of a friar, like with the smooth talking, gluttonous nature, being a sexual predator, interfering busybodies, you could talk about the friar within the Wife of Bath prologue before her tale, and you could also talk about in the Shipman's Tale, a separate part of the Canterbury Tales, there is a story about a friar, and there's a use of fableau, which is a technique used to like use really vulgar, crude stuff, for example the farting out of friars, to exemplify this estate satire. But when it comes to friars and clergymen, this can also link to anti-clericalism, which we'll come to in the next slide. According to the medieval estate satire, conventional features of the portrayal of wives include going on multiple pilgrimages, which we obviously know our wife does, concern about the presidents in the church, which links to Lollardism, which we'll talk about in the next slide, weaving or spinning, so we know the wife does go on a lot of digressios. She does digress lots and lots, to the point where the partner interrupts and highlights this in his "now dame," analysis of her to try and interrupt her digression. And then knowledge of the law of love and love talk, that links to the wife's ideas that are shown immediately at the start of her prologue about experience and experience overriding everything else. Pride and vanity, talking about the wife and her connection to her ageing and like attachment to wanting to stay beautiful and young. And promiscuity, obviously the wife has had quite a few husbands and says that she had sexual exploits even before them. Considering she was married when she was 12 for the first time, this is quite concerning. So anti-clericalism is a very important idea within the Wife of Bath. The tale and her prologue, particularly the prologue, as there are obviously characters such as the pardoner, the friar, etc., etc. And they are generally a joke within the text. They are used to express perhaps Chaucer's contemporary ideas about the church being corrupt, like lots of the population, because they were taking money to relieve people of their sins, which obviously is not the way in which the church should practice. So Lollardism was a contemporary idea, which is also important. Obviously very anti-clerical, as it wanted to reform the church at the time, and it often references female preachers and having the Bible translated into English so everyone can access it. Obviously, due to the extreme hierarchy of the church and the elitism that was going around, they wouldn't have wanted this. But the Wife of Bath's character, in her nature in which she preaches herself, she exemplifies ideas of Lollardism, perhaps linking to Geoffrey Chaucer's own ideas about this being good, this being a change he wants. But I wouldn't say in an exam, oh, Geoffrey Chaucer was a Lollardist. You can just say he references some of the ideas of Lollardism. So, general exam tips. This is specifically for an English exam, writing your paragraphs and stuff like that. This is not like the way you have to do it. This is not the perfect way. This is just the way I do it, and it always has good results. So, signposting. Make what each paragraph is going to argue clear. You have got to have your points nailed in that first sentence. If that opening sentence of that paragraph is not immediately drawing the person who is marking your paper in, you will lose marks because you've got to engage them immediately. Judgment. Don't sit on the fence, you will get splinters. Do not have an umming and ahhing paragraph where you can't find your argument. Balance is important, but you have to have a judgment that you can draw back to. Consistent judgment is what the examiner is looking for. They're not looking for someone who's got ideas here, there and everywhere. They want one line of argument that digresses and goes on to balancing this argument, showing other sides of this argument, but overall drawing back to the same argument. Do not jump around the text and jump around ideas. That will not help you. So, analysis, ensure this is accurate and to the point. Because obviously the Wife of Bath is a medieval text, don't sit there and translate it in the exam. Don't sit there in the exam and translate words from the text. You will not get marks for this. Reference the text in its obviously traditional style of writing and then analyse that text. Do not translate it though, because that doesn't count as analysis. That's just translating, and that's not what they're asking you to do. CK, contextual knowledge, literally what we've gone over today. There's loads more than what I've said. This is a very brief overview, but show the examiner what you know. Show the examiner that you've got this down. After your analysis, after your evaluation, prove that you can just see this contributing to the contemporary ideas of Chaucer and his time period. Medieval ideas, anti-clericalism, if I can speak, anti-feminism, and then see how a contemporary audience now would view this text. They'd see it in a more feminist light, sympathy for the wife, etc. And then success. This is my optimised exam technique, and this is what helps me do well in an exam. So that was my very brief overview of contextual things in the Wife of Bath, and a brief little overview of exam technique as well. Leave any more questions in the comments, specifically about context and stuff, and just generally about Wife of Bath. And good luck in your exams. Bye!